The Turnbull government will launch an independent inquiry into allegations of rorts and misconduct plaguing a multibillion-dollar federal scheme designed to help house the poor. Social Services Minister Christian Porter will announce the review of the National Rental Affordability Scheme on Thursday, following a string of complaints against housing providers. Under the $3.2 billion Rudd government scheme, investors purchase new property and rent it out to low-income earners for 20% less than market rates, in return for an annual $11,000 government subsidy. But since its launch in 2008, the scheme has faced persistent criticism that it has failed to meet targets and has been hijacked to build student housing for wealthy foreign students. More recently, it's been hit with claims that providers have been leaving investors, many of them mum and dad investors, in the lurch by delaying payments for up to a year. There have also been allegations of so-called third-line forcing, when providers withhold payments until investors agree to use the services of particular third parties, such as property managers. Mr. Porter said the inquiry was absolutely necessary. This inquiry is in direct response to investors' complaints against providers, including delays in passing on financial incentives to investors in the scheme, Mr. Porter said. The majority are doing the right thing. But investors' complaints about the behavior of some organizations need to be addressed. I want to ensure that RES provides investors with much greater protection. It's understood most of the complaints have related to a small number of the scheme's 133 providers, which include property developers, not-for-profit organizations and community housing bodies. One of the top providers, Ethan Affordable Housing, was accused by investors last year of delayed payments. But in a statement to the ABC last year, it blamed the previous management team at the Department of Social Services for the delays. Ethan accounts for about 2,200 of the scheme's 33,000 properties. The Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission revoked Ethan's charity status last year after investigating its activities. However, the Commission could not provide any details of its investigation due to strict secrecy provisions in its legislation. The government's new inquiry builds on tougher regulations introduced by Mr. Porter last month that give the government increased powers to punish providers who do the wrong thing. His department now has the power to compel organizations to fulfill their contractual obligations to pass tax incentives and payments on to investors in a timely way. If providers that act in the best interests of the scheme or investors, the subsidy attached to particular dwellings can be compulsorily transferred to another provider or withdrawn altogether. The government's investigation will be conducted by an independent consultant to be appointed in the coming days. The scheme currently costs about $300 million a year and is due to run until 2025-26.